So day 2 of this little success series that I got going on, I've realized that as I'm reviewing some of the guys that are on my list here of my mentors, that it's easier to start with the ones that are not alive, because it's kind of a vulnerable thing to talk about some of the stuff that happened in the stories and what they meant to me. So the second guy that I was going to talk about today, so I told you yesterday about Jerry Green and how much Jerry helped me, right? And so when Jerry gave me some money, which I thought was a lot of money, it was $100,000. But if you're going to go out and buy big real estate deals, it's not a huge amount of money, but it was a lot of money to me. So when I started that, I had to figure out what to do with that money. So the next thing I did was I thought I need to find a consultant, somebody that can help me understand what to do with it. It was really just an opportunity to learn, which is what all of this stuff was. So I found a guy through someone that worked at the restaurant. Her dad was a developer, mostly at Table Rock, where he did a lot of deals and understood the real estate business and understood what I was trying to do. His name was Joe Stevenson, right? And Joe Stevenson, he was older when I knew him than this picture, but this is the picture that I got. And this kind of captures a lot of who he was. Super jovial guy, very fun to be around, life of the party. What was really good about it for me was that at the time, especially, I was a BB in a tin can. I was all over the place with everything. Everything was an opportunity for me to be, in a lot, not a lot of details, but moving too quick, right? And so Joe Stevenson takes a meeting with me and agrees to sit down with me to talk about what I'm going to do and possibly being my consultant. At this point in his career, he was retired and probably mid-70s, had slowed down a lot, still very funny, very jovial, but very detail-oriented, very cautious, very curious, and really felt like moving too quickly with anything was just absolutely ridiculous, and would not accept moving too quickly on anything. So at this time in my life, I was trying to figure out, especially who I was in the business, and so I took on at that time a lot of his traits, and those traits in my memory were like checking calories on the yogurt. I wasn't concerned about stuff like that, but I felt like his qualities were applicable, so I needed to look at every single. I would buy a piece of gum, log the receipt. I would check every label for everything I ate. He was the kind of guy that would eat the same piece of toast every morning and the same thing for lunch, and would never vary, and would have exactly the same amount of scotch at night, 1 scoop of ice cream. There was something so simple about that. There was less thought that went into it. He just was so detailed, and he was so planned out that it was just impressive to me. I was just so drawn to that because I was nothing like that. I came from a place where you just did 10 things at once, and there was no value in trying to log a stick of gum or how much you paid for something. Just keep moving forward and don't worry about that kind of stuff was the kind of the mentality that I had been shown. So I met with Joe, and he was in his mid-70s at that time, retired, and really conscious about how much money he was spending on things too, which is just a nice way of saying he was really cheap at that point. So he loved the idea that I would buy him lunch. And this guy had also made millions of dollars in business, but was looking for a $10 lunch at that time. And we became very good friends, and he was involved in almost every aspect of the business when I was buying and selling real estate at that time, and consulted me on whether to buy things and whether to not buy things. Now, what he gave me, right, what was interesting about this is I'm selling houses now for a couple years when I meet Joe, and I had some money from Jerry Green. I told you I got $100,000, and I was going to go look to invest this money. Part of me at that age thought that investing this money was like a full-time job, and that I could grow it, and that I could just kind of have this investment company. Terrible idea. Makes no sense to really think that way. But you can see that you can get kind of caught up in this, especially when someone like Jerry says, you can do this, and this is going to work for you, and you're going to make a lot of money, or whatever he thought about me. Part of it encouraged me, and part of it made my ego not really understand what I was capable of. Joe was in charge of keeping my ego in check. And so the lesson that I got from Joe that I would never forget, and the lesson that I still keep to this day, and that I've never faltered from, because Joe told me this, and I took his word as the word. When he told me something, I listened to it. And what he told me was, you have to stay focused on your sales business, because it is the business that will feed you, and it is the business that will feed your family long term. It is the most important thing that you're doing. The other stuff that comes up, the Jerry Green stuff, the $100,000, if you can make a few deals here and there and make some extra money, that's great. But the way Joe Stevenson described it was banging the phone, banging the phone, banging the phone, which especially in those days was the way that I built my business, was the only way that I would maintain any level of income over the years. He was so right about that, especially because the real estate market went down incredibly in 2008, and the only way that I was able to sustain myself was selling more houses at that time. Even if they were smaller houses, I sold a lot of houses at that time. So, I don't like that when people are close to me, or they understand what I do, or they refer my business. It's difficult for people to think about the part of my business that is banging the phone, banging the phone, banging the phone. And I say it like that because that's the way Joe Stevenson taught me to think about it. At the time, it was all a relationship thing. And now it is all a relationship thing too, but there is a prospecting piece, which is banging the phone. And even people that know me and like me and trust me, I still bang the phone a little bit. And I still call to catch up or call to inform. And a lot of people hang up. Not people that know me, but for sale by owners and other people that don't know me as much might just hang the phone up on me. So Joe Stevenson was the one who said, this is a numbers game. And you have to remember that behind every no is a yes. Maybe it's behind 49 no's is a yes, but one no gets you one no closer to a yes. And that's a very important thing when it comes to any business, but especially the real estate business, because I get a lot of no's every day. I get a lot of people. Today I have people that email me and say, we asked you to stop calling us. You need to stop calling. And even if I can add value, even if I know I can help, even if I've sold homes in the neighborhood, if I'm reaching out, they're going to say no. And they're going to say, we already have somebody. That's part of what I do. And there's a lot of rejection in that. That's what makes it work. Well, Joe Stevenson was the one who taught me that was normal. That's normal. You're expected to get 50 no's before you get a yes, or 35 or 87. Whatever that number is your number. And you need to keep track of that number. You need to understand that number, and you need to embrace it. Right? And Joe was all about the numbers. At that time, I was not all about the numbers. Now, he would love the fact at this point in my career, people hire me because I am the numbers guy. I am the guy that says we're going to follow the process exactly the way that we have to. And we are not going to variate. There's no, let's just see what happens realtor type talk. No. None of that. There's going to be a plan. Here's what we're doing today. 12 days from now, we're doing this. 13 days later, we're doing this. That is how we structure what we do around here. And Joe Stevenson taught me that. And when we would have meetings, he would say, what's going on with this? And I would say, and I'd give him a dopey 25-year-old answer. And he would say, I'm sorry, but that is not an answer. So let's start over. Give me a different answer. And I would get frustrated about it, and say, that's the answer I got, or whatever it was. I couldn't quite understand at the time. And Joe died even, around the same time that Jerry died, actually, a little bit later. And I didn't really get to take advantage of all that teaching, but he got Parkinson's while we were working together, or we became aware of the fact that he had Parkinson's, and it became very obvious that some of these OCD tendencies were kind of a part of this condition, or that they were at least exacerbated by each other. And so I became very aware of what I learned from him and how to apply that, and how certain people would hire me because I could take on that attribute and I could be the line by line guy. When I first got into the business, I was probably the shoot from the hip guy. And at some level, maybe you have to be that.
A few moments later.
So, obviously just a novice. I ran out of batteries in the middle of my story about Joe Stevenson. But you got the message. And the message was, the lesson was, stick with your core service and do your job every day, and don't get caught up in all the other bright lights that are out there, because those present themselves, or can present themselves a lot. Stay focused on what your core service is. My core service is, and has always been, selling houses. Very simple. When people ask me what I do, I tell them I sell houses. You might find that there are some real estate agents that will have very creative answers to that, or that they get caught up in 5 or 6 different businesses along the way. That's never been me. I've never been trying to sell you anything else other than my services in selling or buying a house. I just don't do that because I don't want to cloud that message ever, right? So, and Joe Stevenson taught me that, right? And so that I just wanted to kind of finish that tribute to him, because I think about what he told me all the time, and the messages that he gave me about paying attention to the details resonate with me all the time as well. So like this video, subscribe to this. I will continue the success series and the mentor series that I'm working on right now. And I've got a lot of other things that I'm working on that I'd like to share with you here, and I'd love your feedback on any of those things. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the disruption on the video. See you soon.